Well, Orwell was projecting from his time. 1984 was actually 1948 reversed. So he was actually looking at the trends that were causing him a great deal of worry at that time. And he was right to warn against the dangers of that. But the world has changed in very many ways, ways that he might not have been able to foresee. The Cold War is over. Totalitarianism is very much on the retreat. In fact, it's essentially disappeared. Even autocratic societies like China's are not totalitarian in the sense that they don't have total control of all forms of communication and expression. And increasingly, we're looking in the age of the internet at a level of freedom of expression that is difficult to constrain. The forces of globalization were then seen as the other threat, that there'd be a uniformity with everybody sort of following Mickey Mouse, McDonald's and MTV. But even that, I think, is not happening, and we're seeing some of the reverse globalization from other societies with people like, well, look at my own country, India, whose products, whether it's Bollywood or Indian cuisine or fashions, are also spreading around the world. So you find that even globalization involves currents in both directions. So I'm not as worried as I think Orwell was rightly worried in the late 40s. But I think we have to continue to be vigilant and stand up for a vision of diversity and pluralism in the world, and that's what my lecture seeks to do.
Fantastic. I guess then, in terms of the internet itself and the way information is shared, obviously as someone who has been in government for many, many years and been involved in the UN as well, how do you think the internet should be used by governments to touch base with their people? How should that relationship work in terms of
Well, I think the internet is a tremendously interesting medium because it's two-way. With social media, for example, it's not just the government broadcasting on radio or TV, it's people coming back to it with questions, with demands, with explanations. It's a way of increasing accountability between the governors and the governed. So I'm actually very much in favor of the internet as a governance tool in the 21st century. And I do believe that creative and intelligent governments will learn to use it well as a means of actually serving their populace. You're already finding certain normal uses, for example, updating people on whether trains are on time, where their parcels are being delivered, where garbage can be collected. You can find notices from various municipal corporations on Twitter, on Facebook, and so on. That's one level, but you can also go beyond that to actually taking and answering questions if you are a senior government official on the work of your ministry from the general public. You can actually use social media for crowdsourcing of public opinion on issues that matter. There are so many things you can do. And I'm very much of the view that this kind of era today is one that will lend itself to even more creative applications of this.
Looking more broadly at India's role going forward, it is predicted to be one of the dominant superpowers as we go forward in this century. Where do you think India lies in terms of achieving this status at the moment, and what do you believe is its core diplomatic role in the world?
Well, I wouldn't use the word dominant superpower yet. I've said somewhat controversially in India that we really can't be a superpower when we're still super poor. We still have enormous internal challenges to overcome of poverty, of suffering, but we're doing it. We're making a fairly good job of it, though we still have a long way to go. My argument, however, is that a country like India, which is a democracy, which in many ways is a constructive example to the world of the successful management of its enormous diversity, and which has a 6.5-decade record of playing a constructive role in world affairs, initially in the non-aligned movement and today in what I've irreverently dubbed multi-alignment, that is being connected to the rest of the world in all sorts of configurations. To my mind, this suggests that India will be a force to be reckoned with in the 21st century. There's the other thing that when you look at the issues that are coming up in the 21st century, they're no longer so much issues of military power or muscle flexing. They're issues ranging from outer space to cyberspace, where technology, creativity, brain power are often more important to regulate the way in which the world copes with these things. And India is definitely able, by both capacity and inclination, to make a good contribution to those.
And I guess finally, just bringing it home here, how would you characterize India's diplomatic relations with the Middle East and with the UAE in particular?
Well, the Middle East in general, very positive. With the UAE, superb. I would say that what you've got with the UAE is a relationship that rests on a number of pillars. There is a historical pillar of old experience. There was a generation in your country that used to go to school in India. No longer, I'm sorry to say, but certainly I've met a number of them, they're still around, who are full of memories of their associations with cities like Bombay and Calcutta and Delhi. You also have, apart from this historical connection, a modern connection of, especially after the petrol boom, the oil boom, a huge number of Indian workers coming into this country, and the result is that we have a very strong cultural interpenetration. Lots of people, particularly from my home state of Kerala, live here and work here. For them, this is a second home. For you, they're very familiar people because you interact with them in your shops, in your workplaces, in your streets. So that human connection is very important, and frankly, the remittances they send back home are also pretty important in our society. Thirdly, the UAE is a vital source of our energy security. We import a great deal of our energy supplies from your country. Fourthly, and this is the bit that has not been fully realized, is it could be a valuable source of investment. The UAE is amongst the few countries in the world with a significant amount of disposable, surplus, investable income. And in a world in which the Western world is largely in recession, the developed world is generally offering very low returns, few places could be more encouraging in the long term than India to come in knowing that you can not only have much higher returns, but for an assured longer period of time because of the building up of infrastructure and so on in India. That, I think, should be of greater interest than it's turned out to be. I'm sure we should be doing some things better to make our investment climate more attractive, but certainly that's the element of the relationship that should be strengthened.